Welcome to the Cyber Distortion podcast. Tonight, Kevin and Jason have the distinct honor of interviewing one of the co-hosts of the Cybercognition podcast. The Cybercognition podcast is co-hosted by Justin Hutchins and Len Noe. It explores the interplay between humanity and technology, focusing on the challenges and opportunities this relationship presents. Each episode delves into topics at the cutting edge of technology, innovation, and science, aiming to understand humanity's evolving role in an increasingly digital world. The hosts discuss the societal, cultural, political, and philosophical implications of emerging technologies, with a particular emphasis on artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and transhumanism. Tonight, join us as the guys interview co-host Len to get his perspective on this fascinating world. Again, welcome in for tonight's conversation. Enjoy the show.
Episode 8, The Transhuman, with Len Noe. Welcome to the Cyber Distortion podcast. We are on episode 8. So, if you missed episode 7, you might want to go back and review that one, because on episode 7, we had one half of the Cybercognition podcast co-hosts, and we talked in some very detailed AI shenanigans, and that was with Justin Hutchins, or Hutched as we call him. But tonight we have the other half of the Cybercognition podcast, and we're excited about this. I think you guys are going to learn something tonight. So tonight, this other half that we have with us is Mr. Len Noe. And, you know, we just got to meet Len face-to-face a few weeks ago in Vegas at Hacker Summer Camp. Had a great night talking to Len. Just made us even more excited about this night when we're doing this interview with him. And we're just so excited to dive into the details. But let me tell you a little bit about Len, and then we can go from there. So, Len Noe is a technical evangelist, white hat hacker at CyberArk, former black hat, and retired 1%er and global speaker. Now, Len's also a technologist, a podcaster, an author, and of course, a transhuman. Now, what is a transhuman, right? We're going to get into that in just a minute, but I want to tell you about this other thing. I said Len's an author. Len is the author of Human Hacked: My Life and Lessons as the World's First Augmented Ethical Hacker. Boy, if your brain isn't starting to sizzle a little bit on wondering how deep we're going to go in this stuff tonight, there's something wrong with you. So, Kevin, what do you think about our guest this afternoon?
Dude, I've been excited about this episode for, I don't know, since we said, hey, Hutch, what do you think Len would say if we asked him to come on the podcast? And he told me, oh, he'd probably be happy to come on the podcast. And I said, all right, cool. I'm reaching out to him. When Len accepted the invite, I was super excited knowing that this was going to be a fascinating topic to talk about. And I've listened leading up to this, Len, several of the podcasts where you've been interviewed by either on other podcasts or even when Hutch interviewed you before you were a part of the Cybercognition podcast. So I've had the opportunity to hear some of your backstory and how cool that is. So I think that's probably a really good place for us to start tonight for the people that don't know you and don't know your backstory and the whole 1%er story that goes along with your origin story. So if you don't mind, let's just start there and just tell everybody a little bit about who you are and how you came to be what you're doing today for the most part.
Well, first I wanted to just say thanks for having me on. I've been looking forward to this as well. I had a great time with you guys out in Vegas. So that's a very simple question with a very complicated answer. I was born and raised on the west side of Detroit. And my father was one of those types of people that just had to have all the latest gizmos and gadgets, and I had been a part of the computer revolution. The first computer I ever actually had was a Magnavox Odyssey 2, if you remember one of those.
Yeah. Dang. Yeah.
Yeah.
So from there, it was a Commodore 64,
Yeah.
128, an Amiga, TRS-80, 8086, a 386, 486, 486 DX2 with the map coprocessor for the ability for floating decimals. So yeah, I've been doing this for going on 30 years now.
How old were you when you got the Magnavox? How old would you have been?
Oh God, I think I was probably about 9.
I was going to say 10.
Yeah. Okay.
9, 10.
Okay.
Somewhere in that area. So yeah, it's been a really crazy life. I was flunking out of elementary school in 4th grade for the second time when my parents decided, well, maybe we need to get him checked. He might have some kind of a learning disability. Come to find out, I was actually gifted and had a genius IQ, and I just wouldn't do the work because I thought it was boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's always been very strange. I felt like I've kind of lived in 2 different worlds my whole life, because on one hand, all the things that interested me took me down this criminal's kind of a path, and the academic, or I call it the puzzle, the thing that keeps me interested in trying to get past any type of security, whether it's physical, digital, whatever. That kind of thing has been with me my whole life. So I think I was the only quote unquote burnout in junior high and high school that was on the honor roll and still held a 3.8 GPA.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
I had the intelligence, but the people that I was hanging out with in class had no interest in motorcycles or heavy metal music or, all the crazy stuff that I was into. So
right.
From there, it was just a matter of trying to find some group or place where I felt like I belonged, and eventually wound up in spending almost 15 years of my life riding around in motorcycle clubs. And for the record, it's not like it is on Sons of Anarchy. It
No,
really
it's not. Damn it, Netflix. Is that Netflix? I think it is. I don't know.
I couldn't watch it. But no, I had no problem with screwing up my life, screwing up my kids' lives, and it wasn't until I was presented with my first grandchild and went, okay, we got to make some choices now. You can be the crazy screwed up dad, but being the crazy screwed up grandpa just doesn't have the same ring to it. So I essentially had to start making different choices. And the only thing I've really been ever good at was fighting and breaking into computers. And the older I get, the idea of fighting just doesn't really work for me as much as it used to. And the idea of long state-funded vacations just didn't appeal to me at this point in life.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah. That's so interesting too, man, because, you was telling this story, a little bit part of the story when we was in Vegas. And one of the things and we've talked about this before, Kevin, we've had some guests on the show. We kind of talk about the path that we have all taken to get to where we are today. And when you look back, what fascinates me the most is how cybersecurity is an area where people who at any point in their life, when they decide that they want to achieve something greater, that is kind of a place that will accept everyone. And people can come into it. They can figure it out. They will be colleagues that will help you along the way. There's a community of people that will help you get to where you want to be at. And it really is, when you look at a professional area of aptitude, it is an area that has a lot of advantages in the community sense to help people get to where they want to be at. And that was one of the things that I've always been impressed with within cybersecurity. So when I hear your story, I hear a lot of things. I hear, the struggles and the challenges that you had in the point in time that you had to make a decision to do something different. And
Absolutely.
so many people get there and can't make those decisions. Even though they might be capable, they don't make those decisions. But those who do reap the rewards like you, right? And you see all of the advantages on the other side of it. And so we're so glad. I can tell you, I am. I'm so happy when I see other professionals like you in the industry that I can communicate with, that I have a relationship with, that I can learn from, that I can share things with, because that is what community is all about. And I really enjoy doing that in cybersecurity.
I love the fact that it's like this, because when I started doing this, there wasn't really much of a community. So to see where we are now, and that's one of the reasons that I love, trying to educate, and any opportunities that I can, spread the word. I really appreciate the opportunity. So, hats off to you guys.
Yeah.
Well, hats off to you guys, too, for having a podcast and sharing all the information that you guys share, because I feel like what you guys cover in your podcast is very unique. It's very, it's interesting because it's delving into the world of AI, but it's also delving into the world of transhumanism with somebody that lives that life, that knows what that's like, and that can speak to that through experience. And I guarantee you there's lots of people out there that are so interested in that topic that alone will drive them to your podcast to listen. And it has me. It's fascinating. I enjoy it, man. And your backstory just makes it even cooler. And the fact that you guys are cool enough to share that with other people and help them learn from it's amazing.
Yeah, I was sharing your story to my wife this afternoon. We're taking a walk, and I was. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a fun night. This guy we have coming on tonight, this is kind of his story. And I was telling her all about it,
I did that last Friday. Last Friday at dinner, I was talking about this episode. I was that excited about it.
Yeah, so there you go. But let's get into this, right? That was a great origin story. And I again, like I said, I really love to hear those types of stories. But let's talk a little bit more about transhumanism. So if you looked it up online, this is the general understanding of it. It's described this way. Transhuman is a philosophical and intellectual movement that advocates the enhancement of the human condition by developing and making widely available new and future technologies that can greatly enhance longevity, cognition, and well-being. So put in a more simple way, it's the belief or theory that the human race can evolve beyond its current physical and mental limitations, especially by means of science and technology. So that's kind of the general understanding of it. It's pretty much what about 99.9% say. But Len, give us your definition. What does it mean to you?
Well, what you just gave was kind of a collaboration of two different philosophies. The first time the term transhuman was used was somewhere around 1956, and it was by a British natural scientist named Sir Julian Huxley. And it was actually, his philosophy was that the human being should be able to utilize technology to address deficiencies within the human condition. So by his definition, using a crutch would make you transhuman. Using a continuous glucose meter would make you a transhuman. But we should stop at the point where you've reached the limitations of the human physiological default. So that was basically what there was for quite a while. And then there was a scientist by the name of FM 2030. I'm really glad he changed his name legally to that, because I couldn't pronounce his actual name. And you may not know his name, but you know of his work. He was one of the founding fathers of cryogenics.
Oh.
And his philosophy around transhumanism is anything that can enhance the human condition should be available in fair game. So you basically had the medical side through Dr. Huxley, and you had we'll just call it the future cyberpunk vision of FM 2030.
Yeah.
People like me, the do-it-yourself in your garage kind of transhumans, were known as what, trust me, I'm not a fan of the term, but the general slang term for us is we're a grinder.
Oh.
And I'm not the first to do this. I'm not even close. The first time we saw consumer style implantable technology was back around 2013, 14, 15. And there was a company called Grindhouse Wetware that was out of Pittsburgh. And they were actually putting large implants that had LEDs and kind of made your hand look like Iron Man.
Wow. Wow, that's cool.
And they were actually the first group to ever actually implant a biosensor inside the human body that was not FDA approved. It was a device called the Circadia. And some of the original grinders, these are people that were doing this stuff in their garages, and the only thing they had for bioencapsulation was two-part epoxy in the beginning.
Wow.
So I'm just another step on what I consider to be the evolutionary chain of humanity.
So when you were approaching the thought of doing this, if you go back to that again, like what were some of the triggers or the impotences that hit you that said, you know what, I think I want to try this out. I think what I believe I could achieve beyond what I'm doing right now intrigues me. Tell me a little bit about that.
That was more of a slow process. Like I said, I knew about the Grindhouse Wetware guys, but to me, I was a black hat at that point. So the idea of sticking a big thing that glowed in the top of my hand does not really help for obfuscation.
Right.
So it was like, I thought it was cool.
It's the opposite of it, right?
Yeah. This is like painting a neon sign that says, "Look at me."
Yeah.
And, and this was my thoughts at this time. I trust me, I've completely changed my whole thoughts around this at this point. But at the time, I thought it was just self-serving.
Really?
Just look at me, I'm different.
Right.
And I didn't understand then philosophically what I do now. But I had put these guys in the back of my mind and just, I hadn't thought about them in years. And with my travels for my day job, and I was speaking in Amsterdam. And if you haven't ever met me, I have one tattoo. It starts at my neck and just right, it goes all the way to the tops of my feet. So, tattoo parlors and body modification parlors there are places that, some people collect shot glasses when in the travels. I find a tattoo parlor and I get a sticker for the tattoo parlor. It's one of my things.
Yeah.
And there was a guy in the back who was talking about another tattoo parlor that was the next town over where they had implantable RFID and NFC chips.
Oh.
And it was like, what? This was not something like a big glowy LED or some kind of a biosensor. This was a way that, I could literally physically touch the digit. So.
And you were already hacking at this time, right?
Oh, I had been hacking since I credit my first actual network hack to a token ring.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this sounds really appealing to you at this point then. Okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the idea of attacking NFC had come to me quite a bit earlier. And I'd already basically worked out a lot of my initial attacks that I debuted with the implantable technology through wearables. So the idea of social engineering somebody out of their phone or something and then wearing a ring with the NFC chip and spinning the ring around so that I could actually trigger an NFC tag was something I had already done. And this was one step beyond that, because one of the things that I've known all my life, especially pretty much any 1% biker could probably double as almost a paralegal. We know exactly what we have to do to be able to not go to jail. And one of the things that I learned through living that kind of a life is the idea of what would it take for me to go to jail if I get caught. So, for example, we can all agree that the ability to skim a physical access badge, we've been able to do that for over a decade.
Yeah.
But in order to actually use that compromised data, we either needed to have a cologne card in our hand or a Proxmark or some type of replay device. The minute you get caught with that device, congratulations, state-funded vacation.
Yeah.
But once I started really looking into this as a potential, as a threat vector, I discovered that through things like HIPAA for the United States and GDPR for the European Union, these were in my body. These were considered medical and therefore out of the scope of general questioning by the authorities.
That's incredible.
Flip the script on them. You just changed the game.
That's incredible.
I basically have obfuscation at a governmental level in most of the world.
That's incredible. Well, I want to jump into that. That's a great segue into what I want to talk about next, because I was reading an article where you were being interviewed for The Standard, which is a UK news organization. You probably remember the interview. William McCurdy was the one that was that wrote up this article that I read. And he was interviewing you. I think you were in London at the time, but you were telling him all about the chips in your arm. And you were talking about how many you had. And you went on to say, well, I've got about 5 from my elbow to my wrist in each arm. So today, I believe you have 10 chips. Is that right?
Correct. Well, 9 chips and 9 chips, 1 magnet.
Okay. Yeah, we saw the magnet trick when we were in Vegas. That was really cool. Some of the stuff you can do with the magnet. If any of the listeners happen to run into Len anywhere, ask him to show you the magnet trick. Oh, here, yeah. Check this out. This is insane. So we had bottle caps on the table. He was tripping out the waitresses and everybody that were walking. They're like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" They're like looking on his finger for some sort of gadget. But yeah, it's cool to have those built-in party tricks. But it does make you susceptible.
It's more than just a party trick. Well, we're going to get into that at some point. But believe it or not, the magnet actually adds an additional sense to the human being.
Oh, really? Yeah, let's definitely talk about that. In the article, he was talking about how he had read that you wore the Faraday gloves to protect yourself and why you did that. So if you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about that and I guess answer the question. If somebody were to know you had the embedded technology, could you essentially be hacked?
Absolutely.
Having the technology?
Absolutely. And, if I can take this one step back before we go down this rabbit hole, but, to that point, anyone who integrates their body with technology assumes the technical vulnerabilities of that technology. And that's not just for me, that's for people with pacemakers, stem pain management, anything. The minute you integrate technology into the body has to assume the limitations and the vulnerabilities of the technology that has been implanted. So for me, it's not like they could potentially get any of my data or any information, but what they could do is, you remember the good old days of CDRWs?
Yeah. Yep.
And for the young crowd, that was back when you had rewritable CD-ROMs.
Yep. Right.
And the trick to rewritable CD-ROMs was you couldn't close them, because then once you basically said, this is it, you can no longer rewrite.
Yeah.
Essentially, somebody could do an attack against me that would close my chips, which would no longer allow them to be rewritten or usable for me. And then I'd have to go through the surgery of having them removed and replaced.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I could be active.
So an interesting piece to that, as you think about it, and I think one step further, and I'm only thinking about this from the statements you made about things like pacemakers and other, electronics like that. Do you believe that at some point in the future we can reach the point in which there is a extremely high level of risk for individuals that have devices like this, because these devices could be hacked for bad, right? And actually do something detrimental to that individual's life?
It's already been proven.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I believe it was Barnaby Jack at one of the DEF CONs showed how they could attack a pacemaker as well as a glucose. Don't quote me on the actual security professional, but I thought it was him. But no, they've proven that you could eat, as far as pacemakers go, you can. And granted, a lot of this has changed over the last couple of years, but you could either delay the shock or amplify the shock to cause cardiac arrest. You could also, when it comes to the glucose meters, you could push a lethal dose of insulin.
Wow.
And a lot of it was because some of the earlier medical devices that were able to have some type of an app attached to them, the ones that are connecting over Bluetooth, they didn't understand that Bluetooth, yes, it's a secure technology as long as you choose to secure it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And to that point, one of the things that I discovered during the research for my book was the fact that when it comes to the FDA, which is the main governing body in terms of security for medical devices, they don't have a single IT person, pen tester, anything on staff. And most of the trials for security and safety are actually being contracted out from the manufacturers of those devices.
That's terrifying.
Wow.
The only reason we haven't seen people dying as the result of a hack is because the hackers have chosen not to go there yet. But there's already documented precedent that it could have already happened if we wanted it to.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to think that with the number of hackers that shows up for DEF CON, for example, and that number has to be nearing, if not already past 30,000, that there's got to be a handful of people in that crowd wearing those devices that are either putting themselves at risk unknowingly, and I can't imagine with that crowd that it would be unknowingly, but are willing to accept that risk because of how important the event is to them. But man, that's just a terrifying thought. And I would have never even given it much thought until you mentioned it, to be honest.
But then let me, invite you guys over to my favorite village next year. You'll find me hanging out over in the biohacking village.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that's where they embed chips there, right? They will do that for you.
I know they've done it in the past. This last one, they actually brought in an entire set of medical equipment, MRI machines, X-ray machines, and they were just letting people have a shot at it.
Wow. That's so interesting. It takes security to a whole nother level of understanding and risk and mitigation that I believe we just haven't done enough with, right? So your point, Kevin, I guarantee you there's people that are seeing these devices pop up, on a list of devices that they can connect to and do work with, and they're choosing not to do anything with it because they know what these devices are.
Oh, you have to hope they would.
You would know that this isn't even a question. That this stuff is happening. Well, I want to go one more step further. Oh, go ahead.
Real quick before we jump to the next topic, I just wanted to ask, Len, you mentioned that having to get, like, if one of your chips got bricked, it would have to be surgically removed and replaced. Just out of curiosity, how long is that procedure? How long does it take? And do they put you under for that, or is it just pain numbing? Novocaine? What do they do?
I was waiting for us to get to this question. Well, let me first tell you that it is against the law to administer any type of numbing agent through an injection without a minimum of a nursing certificate. So all of the chips that I've had, all of the procedures that I've had done have been done stone cold sober.
Wow.
Wow. So explain to us, or to the listeners that may be considering getting chipped, what's the level? First off, do you have a high pain threshold? And then what's the level of pain 1 to 10 that you felt when you were doing this? What's the worst one that you had?
Well, to answer your first question, do I have a high pain threshold? I do flesh hook suspensions for fun, where they put the hooks in my back and hang me from the ceilings.
Yeah,
so
he's tattooed from neck to toe.
High. Yeah,
he's tattooed from neck to toe. But I was thinking that was good enough. Now you're talking about flesh hooks, so now you're at a whole nother level of understanding.
Now, in terms of, we call it the installation is what we call it. Mm-hmm. But I've had 3 different installation procedures. So before we get into that, I have to kind of get you an understanding of the different types of implant options. So you have 2 essential form factors that you can choose from. You have a bioglass encapsulation, which honestly, it's about 2 millimeters wide and a little bit bigger than a piece of long grain rice.
Okay.
And if you're going to get one of these types of implants, these are the ones that I actually started with. They come preloaded in a large syringe. And if you've ever seen a dog being microchipped, where they just kind of pick up the skin, they put the needle in, they push the plunger, pull it out, you're done.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing.
Okay.
So that one, it's like, if you ever had like a body piercing done, it's about the same. It's an intense pain, but it's pretty much over and done with before you know.
Okay.
So the next option you have, and we have to start with the form factor, is what they call flexible membrane. So this is actually more laid out on a piece of flat biomembrane and then has been encapsulated with body acceptable polymers to keep the metals on the inside and the body stuff on the outside. Okay. Now, I've had quite a few of these procedures done. These are the intense ones. So that's the biggest one that I have there. You can see it.
Oh gosh, that's way big. Yeah, that's how wide is that? About 1.5 inches?
Closer to 1 3/4 inches. And
okay,
now,
yeah, that's big.
That's a combination NFC RFID chip, which we can get into at later on. But in terms of getting it installed, that one was actually a scalpel, had to be cut all the way from here to here. And then you get to experience what is called a dermal elevator. So these are basically blunt instruments that are used to pry the dermis or the skin layer away from the muscle tissue below it to create the pocket that is needed in order to put the microchip into.
It's already making me weak.
And no, there was no Novocaine or anything else.
So how long did that one procedure take?
If I had to, I can tell you how long it felt.
Yeah.
It felt like an eternity.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I would say it was probably 7 to 10 minutes.
That's it?
Okay.
Oh my gosh, dude. I mean, you would think, you know, 1 3/4 inches square that you're of skin that you're prying away from flesh. You don't just do that in one fell swoop, right?
Dude, that's a lot of nerves you're hitting on right there.
Yeah.
It was basically done in one shot.
Wow.
So
And
you mentioned you've had that one done a few times. Did you do all those in the same sitting?
no. I was two at a time, 4, and yeah. So I did them
at
in
one
large
time.
groupings, but I did quite a few at a time every time I went in.
You most definitely have a high pain threshold, sir.
Absolutely.
If I ever get into a bar fight, I want you there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the third option is the way that most of them are going now. The main distributor of consumer grade implants in the United States is a company called dangerousthings.com. They're based out of Seattle, Washington, and they've come out with their own very customized piercing needle and they've recontoured the profiles of all of their microchips to work with this one specific needle. There are still a few of you're really going to hurt to get them, but most of them have been ported over to the point where it's just a standard needle. You just push the chip in, a little bit of skin glue, and you're done.
You said dangerousthings.com?
That is the main distributor and manufacturer for consumer grade implants. And if you have listeners over in Europe, there's a company called KSEC, which is based out of London, that would be the distributor for cybernetics in that part of the world.
Okay.
Cool. We'll put links to those in our description too.
So going into, I don't even know where to go now, but I do. That was so it's still on my mind. And separating skin from muscle.
I'm telling you, dude.
But going into this a little bit at a higher level, let's come back up a little. The same article Kevin was referring to, I've read through the article, and they made a statement in the article saying, and I heard you talking about this in Vegas too, so if someone was to hand their phone to you, if you just said, hey, can I use your phone so I could do a emergency call or whatever, that using the NFC chip that you have in your hand, you would be able to do a website injection using the browser exploitation framework. So it would bring up a website on that phone that is especially trying to do this exploitation, and it would then install malicious code on the phone, and just like that, it would give you complete access to it.
Potential complete, but more than when we say complete, we're talking root level. So not right off the bat.
Yeah.
But what it would give me is access into your user directory, so your pictures, your SMSs, your text messages, web history, and potentially, depending on the make model of the phone, if I can escape that, then I can get access to the actual device, all of your apps. But if you're using any type of BYOD situation, that could actually be a way for me to launch from your mobile device back into your enterprise. And that's one of
it has to be unlocked first, right? It has to be unlocked.
Oh
yeah. But still, right? The point here is how easy you could do this.
Yeah,
because you have this chip embedded in you, and no one would ever know.
They would never see it coming. They would never see it coming, right?
Right.
That's the wildest part.
And that's only one of many attacks I've come up with. If you've got an Android device, hats off to Apple for their closed architecture. It makes it a little bit harder to install Trojans. But I've actually timed myself. I can actually pull down a malicious APK, completely get it installed, and hand it back to you in less than 15 seconds.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Oh.
And that's what the Meterpreter, that's a Meterpreter reverse TCP. So access to the entire Meterpreter suite at that point.
Yeah, that takes it to a whole nother level, man.
No doubt. That's crazy.
Oh, you think that's bad? Can I give you one more?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So let's say my actual which one of you guys is the richer of the two?
Oh, Jason, for sure.
Oh, me?
Okay.
Thanks. Throw me under the bus.
Jason's the target. Okay. So if I know Jason's the target and this is what I call the implant fish or smish, take your choice. So if Jason is my target, Kevin, you're my actual physical target. So what I can do is I can have a pre-set up email that's either malicious HTML based or with malicious links in it. The minute I get your phone in my hand, it will trigger that tag, and it's going to actually prompt to use your default mail system on your mobile device. So I'm going to fish Jason from your actual.
That's smart.
Yeah, that's gold, dude. That
more
is
like he's more likely to click on whatever it is I send him. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm not clicking on anything you send me, Kevin.
Well,
I'm gonna call you first.
This makes you.
But the thing is, we're as a society, we're being pushed to use more of this NFC contactless payment for ease of use. But people don't realize that's not the only functions that can happen over that protocol.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
I personally, I don't use it, but my advice, if you want to stop any type of mobile device attack from a transhuman with the current available technology that's not being made in somebody's garage, which I'm doing that too, but turn off your NFC.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to be said for that, right? So like even things like using your phone to pay or your watch to pay, right? The risks associated with that people don't think about as they're doing this. Is just ease and convenience, right? So
I've been in this game for almost 30 years. And the one thing I can say with 100% certainty is I've never seen anything in tech that makes somebody's life easier, that makes it safer.
True.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, so before we jump off this topic, I just want to ask, Len, I know you've spent a lot of time learning how to leverage your technology for the purposes of hacking. And that's really cool to be able to do that using technology that can't even be detected. How many hacks would you say that you've been able to pull off, or how many do you know using the different chips that you have? Is there a number that you've got that roughly that you can say, I've got about 100? Yeah.
Personally, I've come up with about 35, 40 different methods that I can leverage these across both digital and physical security.
Yeah.
I mean, the physical security is the one that gets everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, this chip that I have right here, just this one alone.
Yeah.
You know, I can do over 140 different physical access protocols with that. Prox, Pyramid, Diamond, and Dala. You know, so let's go back to what we were talking about before. You know, up until now, if you got caught, you'd have a device, a card. The worst thing that can happen to me is I'll get trespassed off the property. But I have 9 other chips. You don't know what else I've done.
And they would be like, I don't even know how he did it, but he got in here some kind of way.
And even if you look at the cameras, what does it show? I reach up and the door opens.
Yeah. He's using some voodoo magic.
You can tell them whatever you want to tell them, right? Because they can't challenge you. You can say, you know, I just reached up to try to pull on the door and it opened up automatically. I don't know. Maybe have it checked out.
Yeah, I saw the racks of servers. I've seen that on the commercials. I thought it was cool. I'm sorry. All I got to do is play dumb.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's incredible.
Well, man, this has been a fascinating first segment. I'm really enjoying where we're going with this. I'm still thinking about flesh separating from muscle. But let's take a break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to dive into the second segment.
Sounds good.
Neuralink is a neurotechnology company founded by Elon Musk that's building an implantable BCI capable of translating thought into action. Launched in 2016, the private venture claims its neural device will allow people with paraplegia to regain movement and restore vision to those born blind. A human patient, 29-year-old Noland Arbaugh, received the first Neuralink implant on January 28, 2024. In a May 2024 blog post, Neuralink reported that, in the weeks following the surgery, Arbaugh had been successfully using the implant to control his laptop while lying down in bed. Prior to Arbaugh, the neural implant had only been tested on rats, mice, monkeys, sheep, and pigs.
Welcome back from the break. We are having a fascinating conversation with our guest, Len, tonight from Cybercognition Podcast and CyberArk. We're going to jump into a few more topics that we've been very curious to talk to you about, Len, and one of them is, your personal security. So we talked about how the chips can be bricked. We talked about how there is some risk to you just by having the chips embedded. And I remember Hutch specifically talking about the Faraday gloves when he was interviewing you. And that made me think and wonder, okay, how is it? Because I know you travel a lot. We just talked about the poster behind you and how many times you spoke in 2022. Look at the poster behind Len. If you're watching this on YouTube, check that out. That's how many times Len actually spoke about his chips and technology and just in general, just in that 1 year. That's incredible. But that has to raise the question. When you're going through security at the airports and you're having to deal with that, and you've got all this electronic embedded technology in you, what does that look like? I mean, does it pose any kind of a problem for you at all? I mean, talk a little bit to
that. The typical answer, that's one of my 3 top FAQs. And the truth is, once you start shoving microchips in your body, you develop your own FAQ. I've even considered making fake cards just to give to people, just so I don't have to answer it. So I'm going to knock out all 3 of these in one before I answer your question. So the number 2 question for my FAQ is this the same chip that's in my dog or cat? The answer is not the same chip, same technology.
Yeah.
Then the number 1 question is always, how do you get through airports? And the answer is left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot.
Like everybody else.
Just like everybody else. So there's a couple of things to point out in terms of this question. The first is, let's look back to what we had already talked about, and that is HIPAA. So as much as I love to think that I'm the bionic man just because of the implants, I actually had to get my first medical implant back in February. I actually had to have a full left knee replacement. Before I got that knee replacement, I'd been traveling for almost 4 years, and we have to remember most of these chips are silicon. They're not actually magnetic reactive. So let's talk about, the Leidos body scanners. Those are not X-rays. Those are density scanners. So from the first perspective, they're inside my body. They're not going to trip the body scanner. And number 2, even if they do go off, my response has to be, it's medical.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the things that I learned after I got my knee replacement is I've always seen those people at the airport who have those cards. Oh, I have a fake hip. I have a fake knee. And I actually thought those meant something. They mean absolutely nothing. So much so that you can go up on the TSA's website and actually download the template for these things and fill it out yourself.
Yeah.
There is no difference and no document that a physician can give you that will give you any different treatment at any type of TSA. They follow the same procedure whether you have the card or not. And so that is the biggest misconception, is these are going to trigger some type of detector.
Yeah.
And to that point, the one thing that I want to make obvious since we're at this, and the airport is usually what spurs this question. There is no way to detect people like me, period, that doesn't break some type of health and privacy law currently.
Thank you, HIPAA.
And I mean, if you think about it this way, I have multiple different chips. They are running at different frequencies, and they're communicating over different protocols. So we have 3 different things going on here for each one of those chips. So if you wanted to try and do some type of a detection utilizing, some type of full spectrum analyzer, you're going to need to hit every frequency on every channel, on every protocol, in the amount of time it would take for you to walk through an archway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
So one of the interesting things, as you were saying that, made me think about what protocols do you need to take if you were unconscious and at the hospital and they need to do an MRI?
Yeah, the MRI, that's a good one. I don't even go in near the room because I can feel them.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
That's back to the magnet. The additional sense that magnet provides me is something that is called magnetic vision. So I can actually feel electromagnetic fields, waves, and currents.
Does that affect you if you're using like a microwave oven or anything like that?
I can feel the microwave oven. I can feel the can opener.
Wow.
And depending on
can opener.
The can opener is not shielded at all. I can just feel it pulsing off of it.
Wow.
And depending on how shielded your electrical wiring is in your home, I can actually trace your electrical wires just by running my hands over the walls.
I bet. I could see that.
Wild.
That actually is a really good call out, because it just highlights the importance of good wiring and wire shielding and data protection around wire shielding. Right, things that people just don't even think about on a regular, unless you're in cybersecurity. People don't think about those things. They expect it to happen, right? But there's so many other things associated there. One of the things is you're saying that, feeling it and being able to know, where there's magnetic fields, just made me think about all of the other things associated with how it changes your daily life and even your senses, right? You just added another sense. And basically, so it's just fascinating.
I wanted to touch on one last point about the concept of detection, because I would love to get y'all's thought on this. So you're familiar with drug canines that the police in the military. Yeah. We're all familiar with cadaver dogs, bomb dogs. Did you know that there is now a technology sniffing?
What?
No. Wow.
This is a new type of canine that's actually been added to police forces that's trained to hit on the chemical compound of triphenylphosphine oxide.
Oh.
So this is one of the chemicals that's used in circuitry and hard drive creation. And now these dogs are not used, the same way drug dogs are. It's not going to walk up and go like, "Oh, JC, you've got a cell phone." These dogs are used predominantly in child pedophilia cases, human trafficking cases, where after the arrest has been made, and as part of a search warrant, they're trying to search out computers, hard drives, and thumb drives.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I've actually put this, and the reason I'm bringing this up is I'm hoping that on one of these podcasts that I'm on, there'll be some law enforcement agency out there that would like to take me up on the offer. But I am curious if these types of dogs may be able to smell the technology through my skin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think back to the Terminator movie, wherever the rebels were, they always had the dogs because the dogs could smell the tech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
but even then,
concepts.
Let's say they could. Hypothetically, they have that capability, and the skin is not a big enough deterrent. Would they be able to take any kind of an action on it based on the HIPAA laws we talked about?
Well, see, and that's where, when we talk about the HIPAA laws, there are ways that you can actually be compelled to give up medical information. And one of those would be reasonable articulable suspicion of an actual crime. So right now, they have nothing that they can use that would actually prove intent to commit. If they were able to first determine that, hey, I have a microchip in my hand, and then they saw me opening a door, now there's that missing piece. There's that code. There's that prox mark. So would it be able to determine that somebody is doing something wrong? Not necessarily, but what it could do is provide enough reasonable suspicion that you could actually start investigating further.
Yeah. Right. You could probably make a case for intent at that point.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting.
Well, talking about that makes me go one more step down. We talked about like MRI machines and what are some of the risks that you have. You know, we were talking earlier with you about just generally like health risks associated with the chips that you have in you. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit more about like, what have you had any really big scares that you had to be concerned about?
I had one, and it was my own dumb fault. You know, I should have listened to the directions of my body mechanic. And quick shout out to Shaman Modification here in Austin, Texas, and Pineapple Tangora, you know, my personal body mechanic. When I did the big implant on the top of my hand, he had warned me ahead of time. He's like, this is a big process we're going to go through, man. You need to start taking some Motrin and get on some anti-inflammatory stuff now. And well, I'm a man. And of course,
we know where this is going.
Oh, yeah. So I figure, you know, I'm a manly man. I'm just going to let him pry my skin open and put a microchip in there, and I'm just going to be fine. I woke up the next morning with a quarter of a softball on the top of my hand.
Oof. Oh, man. The swelling?
The swelling was to the point where, I mean, you had at least almost 3/4 to an inch of swelling off the top of my hand. And the problem was, when he was using those dermal elevators to create that pocket, he didn't give a lot of extra space.
Yeah.
You know, and then we basically used skin glue to glue it back together. So as the swelling was continuing, it was basically continuing to separate the dermal layer from the muscle tissue just from the pressure. That was the first time I went to the doctors.
I can't imagine the pain.
It was something unique.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah.
And from a guy who hangs from meat hooks, you know, that's saying something.
Oh.
But I went to my actual physician, and I'm like, I need some prescription strength Motrin. They took one look at my hand and were like, we need to get you into an emergency surgery and get that out of there. I don't think so, man. I just paid almost $400 to put that in there.
So you did tell them what you did, and they understood what was causing it then. Okay. They weren't just looking at your hand going, oh, what'd you do? Hit it on something or?
Oh, no, I didn't even get that far. I walked in and he was like, oh, my, I don't need to ask what happened, but we need to get you into surgery. It was, I mean, it was like, no, man, I just paid to have this put in. I'm not taking it out.
Wow.
They wouldn't give me a prescription for Motrin, so I just bought some over the counter and took 2. That swelling went down, and I'm fortunate. You know, I was never in was being the key word. I don't feel the same way today. But, you know, I was never one of those original style grinders that were like, okay, I'm going to solder something up in my garage and then put 2-part epoxy around it and hope for the best. I wasn't.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you.
Today, I definitely gotten to that point because the limitations of what you can buy as a consumer grade implant are just a little bit too limited for me. But I'm grateful that that's the worst thing that's ever happened. You know, if you look at some of the original grinders, I mean, we've come a long way in terms of materials, and I'm hoping common sense. I mean, some of the original implants that people were doing is they were taking tritium gas and putting it into a little glass container and then injecting it under their skin so they'd have like a little glowing green spot. And
Insane.
if you look at some of the old biohacker and Grindr forums, there's just incident after incident where, the glass broke, and I don't know what tritium gas would do to human tissue, but it's a radioactive isotope. So I don't think it's going to be something good.
Yeah.
It could
right.
be good. Yeah. Right.
Oh,
That's wild.
And then, the original Circadia implant, this thing was the size of a deck of cards sticking out of somebody's arm.
wow.
No way.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, I remember, when I was before I got into this movement, I'm thinking these guys are a bunch of idiots. What's wrong with them? And now I look at them as, spiritual leaders and
Pioneers. They're the
pioneers, shamans leading me on this road to extra human capabilities.
Yeah.
So if I'm hearing you right,
the foundation.
Yeah.
If I'm hearing you correctly here, Len, what I'm hearing is that you are now willing to take chances that you wouldn't have taken early on.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, and you've become, you've had to be cautious throughout this process, and you've had to be careful with it. And obviously, doing it one or two times obviously builds that confidence up. Now that you've got 10 different devices embedded in you, not really had any major issues as a result of that, has kind of made you a little more daring, it seems. Man, that's based on what you were talking about, though.
Recent.
So, but encapsulating this technology in just silicone or whatever they assume is going to protect you from. Yeah. I mean, is that good enough for you? I mean, would that be enough for you to say, okay, I'm cool with it, whatever?
Yeah. Actually, the project I've been working on for going on 2 years now is going to be, for me, what I'm considering my masterpiece up to this point. And I'm working on actually getting a single board computer implanted in my leg, running either Kali or
That's
Parrot.
the peg. That's the peg leg,
my
right? This is the okay. So great.
This is not the peg leg. The peg
it's
leg
not.
was
Okay.
actually no. This was my idea that I stole from the project called the peg leg. The peg leg was actually an older project that was done by some of the original grinders, and it was based off of the Pirate Box software, if you remember that.
Yeah.
Pirate Box was a logless file transfer. It was coming out right around the same time as the Napster and a lot of the peer-to-peer file transfer.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was a logless file transfer meant to be able to facilitate the sharing of illegal files.
Yeah.
And what they did was essentially just use a Raspberry Pi Zero W with a indirect power receiver or inversion power receiver. And then they basically used epoxy and then would take a scalpel, cut their legs, and basically shove it in their legs right behind where the front pants pocket is. And then they would take a battery that had inductive power capability, slide it into the pocket, which would then charge the device and allow it to run in a headless mode that they can connect to with the cell phone.
So you carry your wireless charger in your pocket. It keeps the device powered up, and and you're good to go. And that device was roughly the size of a stick of gum, correct?
Actually, I have one right here.
Oh, cool. Show and tell. How thick is that? Okay. So it's even bigger.
Yeah.
At least wider than a stick of gum. Okay.
That is a big honka circuit board to go in
Can
your
you imagine
in your
that
leg.
sticking above the muscle in your leg?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I can. But
yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about
this was my original plan. But the more I started looking into the idea of doing this, the more this just didn't really work for what I wanted it to do.
Okay.
So I've been working with a KiCad designer, and we're actually trying to design our own, what I'm calling the hack leg. And once I can actually get all
hack leg. Hack
Yep.
leg. Okay. And this is similar to the peg leg, but it
similar
has
in
more
concept.
functionality.
One of the big differences is going to be we're putting dual Bluetooth and dual Wi-Fi on. So I'm basically building a SBC for offensive security with the intention of running either Kali or Parrot that would allow me to do Wi-Fi style attacks. And through USB sharing, I can actually extend the capabilities through the cell phone. I can do pretty much anything.
Well,
Low
this
energy
thing
Bluetooth
be
sweeps.
so when you get done with this and you've designed it to your liking, is this something that will be could be mass produced and sold to other people that are interested in the technology?
Yeah,
Okay.
it could, but I'm not planning on doing that. My plan was honestly to release it open source, release the KiCad plans, and if somebody wants to do it, I'm community oriented, and if somebody wants to follow in my crazy footsteps, come along for the ride.
Yeah. Godspeed, baby.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And the one thing about that is, once again, that would be inside the body and therefore, once again, covered by all those same laws. And this would actually allow me the ability to take a full offensive distribution into technology restricted locations around governments, military bases, anything.
And this would be embedded in the exact same spot where the peg leg would have been?
Yep. That area of the body, there's enough muscle mass there that you're about mid-range on your heights of the range of the wireless, because it still has to go through the meat of your leg, but it is one of the better physical locations if you're going to try and hit anything at least desk level.
Yeah. That's like taking hacking to a whole nother level.
So you hear about the skimmers, where you hear about the scanners that allow people to scan credit cards. If you're not carrying your credit card in a protected wallet, for example, would this type of technology also be able to pull that type of thing off, or is that one of the other chips that you have that could do that?
I don't have any chips that actually do anything like that. It's more, I'm actually just leveraging a lot of social engineering and NFC tags and the ability to crack physical access cards. Once I can actually get the full distribution in my leg, then I will have the ability to start doing more. I don't want to say unprovoked attacks, but attacks that don't require me to necessarily come into physical contact with my target.
Yeah.
Right now, I am limited by the physical range of the chips themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Man.
let's go into a slightly different topic in this segment. And I think we should talk a little bit about your book.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate that.
So, we've referred to it several times. We talked about that you're an author, that you've done some work here. We talked earlier about, the fact that, you put a lot of thought into this book. The book, again, is called Human Hacked: My Life and Lessons as the World's First Augmented Ethical Hacker. So tell us a little bit more about what people could expect from your book.
Well, that basically you're going to get a little bit of an autobiography. You don't wake up after living a normal vanilla life and just decide, well, today's the day I'm going to start shoving microchips in my body. It's Tuesday. So
had a rough week.
Yeah, but I had to set the stage for how somebody could get to the point where looking at doing something like this is not only something that you would want to do, but almost felt compelled to do. It's also, I spend a lot of time discussing, the current types of, big time body modification augmentations around brain computer interfaces. I spend a lot of time discussing the advancements of smart prosthetics that are actually tapping into the severed nerve bundles. I mean, we now have prosthetics that can actually feel tactile response and even temperature change.
Yeah.
Then I spend some time discussing the future that we all keep hearing about. This wonderful, utopian future where we can download our consciousness into digital format and we can live forever. And I talk about the fact that in order to get there, we're going to have to really change some ethical and moral lines. And essentially, how did we even get to this point in the first place? I'm just the next step. The idea of what is considered mutilation and what is considered vanity are simply a matter of opinion. So what I do is try and give people the ability to at least understand that there is this subculture or subspecies of humans, in transhumanism that is living among you. And to that point, I don't want people to think that just because you have implants automatically is going to make you some master cyber criminal, because the truth is there's already between 60 to 80,000 of these implants that have been sold, and very few are being used in this way.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked a lot about how I can attack people with my implants, but one of the things that I also would like to point out is I actually use them to help secure myself online as well. I mean, one of the things, and I'd love to try and give you guys a quick example of this. We're all security professionals, so the idea of multi-factor authentication is nothing new for any of us. Well, we talked about MFA as something you have, something and now it's also something that's implanted inside you.
Heck of that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you got your token, your token generator built in.
And not only that, this thing is also my BIP32 crypto wallet key. It can do HMAC SHA-1, Smart PGP. And honestly, if you have a Tesla, you can actually put your Tesla key on this implant, get in your car, and just drive away.
Wow.
So, the idea that everybody with implants or any transhumans were automatically a threat isn't the case. But at the same time, we need to be aware that there is this attack vector. But it being implanted automatically making you a threat, to me, in my opinion, is the same as saying just because you have a driver's license, you're a potential vehicular manslaughter suspect.
Yeah. Yeah. People have choice, right? They can choose to use it for good or for bad, and it's how they do it, right? That's with everything. So implants are just,
when it comes to something like this, if I may, when it comes to something like this, we also have to take into consideration social and societal culture and norms.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the scary things is I actually have, it's a defunct chip right now, but I actually had a credit card in the top of my hand. And I can tap to pay with my hand. The company that was backing it actually went bankrupt, but it was really a lot of fun while I had it.
Yeah.
And now this just opens up some new real estate for me to put something else in.
Yeah.
But this has actually gotten me on some actual extremist websites as being called out by name for having the mark of the beast.
Yeah, of course.
So, there's a lot of violence has been done for things that are a lot less.
Yeah.
So I know we've spent a lot of time talking about, the scariness that these can do, but these can also be extremely beneficial to people as well. And I actually question, as we move into this next generation future where with deep fake technology, we don't even know that we're talking to the actual person anymore. Outside of self-sovereign identity is the idea of something like the VivoKey chip that I just showed you. Is that potentially something that we can use to basically SSL our own identity when we don't have the ability to believe what we see anymore?
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the technology is there to do that. And, you're right about the moral lines and ethical lines that would need to move to ever make anything like this acceptable and mainstream, so to speak. I think there's a few barriers to adoption, I guess you would say, at any kind of level that would be considered even close to mainstream. A lot of those, as you mentioned, a lot of the religious aspect of it, they're going to say, oh, that's the mark of the beast. You can't embed a chip in yourself. That's in Revelation or whatever. You could debate that. Yeah, you could certainly say and interpret it that way. But what about all of the technology that can help people? What about all the technology that can like the Neuralink chip? You know, we're sitting here looking at technology that's enabling people that can't speak for themselves to once again communicate.
Yeah.
Did they take on the mark of the beast by accepting that the chip that's allowing them to move a mouse on a screen because maybe their arms don't work and they need to be able to communicate with other humans? I mean, is that it's not negative. There are positives to some of this stuff too.
Well, let me ask you a question. You know, this is where I'm looking in terms of the future, and I'd love to get you guys' thoughts on it. If I was to walk in, let's say hypothetically, I worked at some type of foundry where I'm dealing with heavy, hot objects. If I could go in to a doctor and say, I'd like to have my left arm amputated so that I can get a prosthetic that has pneumatics built into it that can have, 200 pounds of crushing power that doesn't react to be picking up hot steel. If I was to go in today, that would be considered body dysmorphia.
Uh-huh.
And I think a lot of that reason is because we haven't quite gotten to the point where the prosthetics are better than the biological original.
Yeah, right.
Let's flip the script. What happens when technology actually allows prosthetics to be better than the biological original?
Yeah.
Yeah, now you start getting into all kinds of things where you could use it to make yourself better at sports. You could use it to make yourself better at whatever your career happens to be.
If I may, let's not even get to that point yet. Let's just look at face value. Who can gain access to this technology?
Yeah.
If we stay on the current track, even though this arm could be 200 times superior, the only people that would be morally or ethically allowed to get it would be people who had gone through some type of an accident. So basically, by being some stroke of misfortune, you're now superior to a standard human.
Yeah, it goes back to what you were just saying, which so I'll finish that thought first. It goes back to what you were just saying, that there are so many variables that we as a human race have to deal with to get to that point where there will be more acceptance. And this is one of them, right? Where are the lines? Are there lines? Should there be lines? How do we adapt and determine the value, the positive parts of what could come out of technology like this? In fact, now to my other point, what it reminded me of as you were saying this was, again, going back in my age to the $6 million man, right? Yeah, right. And in that story, if you take that story in and of itself,
you're showing your age,
exactly
man.
Talking about what you're talking about, the ability to utilize technology in a human body for good. That's the essence of that story, right? Yep. And so it makes you rethink about some of these. These aren't new thoughts we've had. Obviously, this was happening back in the 70s, right? So these thoughts have been around for a while. It's going to take us some time to get there and open our minds enough to figure out where this really lands. Not that we're not holding back. I mean, there are lines right now that we're looking at to augment humans, to help humans do better, and in things like exoskeleton suits. Now, one step further, exoskeleton suits that are actually
tied into the nervous system,
meshed with your nervous system. Yeah. So we are slowly getting there on that same path. I think the journey is going to take us some time.
Well, I don't think we're going to be the first ones to get there. To your point, the U.S. government and DARPA is spending massive amounts of money on these nervous system integrated exoskeletons.
Uh-huh.
However, if you take a look at the UK, they actually released, I think it was £3 million for research into actually enhancing the actual physical soldier themselves through either extra addition of new senses, technology to improve reaction time, and things of that nature. So if we go back to what we had originally talked about in terms of the two split philosophies of transhumanism, you can see very distinctly how, when it comes to the United States, we've gone the route of the exoskeleton. So we're not actually enhancing the person, we're enhancing the person's abilities.
Yeah.
Whereas the UK is actually trying to enhance the actual soldier themselves.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting.
Well, gosh, man, this is one of those, unfortunately, this is one of those topics that we could talk about for 6 hours and not get bored of it. But we said this with Hutch. We said this with Hutch last week, or when we recorded episode 7, right?
Yeah.
We could go all night, but we eventually have to figure out where do we cut this thing off and call it an episode. So I think, unfortunately, we need to put an end to this segment too, so we can get to the last segment. But Len, this is fascinating. If you, I guess we'll do this now instead of at the end of the game. If you could leave the listeners with anything at all, is there anything else you'd like to say other than, hey, man, buy my book because it's going to be awesome? And it is.
Basically, if I could say one thing to everybody, is we need to stop looking at technology with the eyes of somebody back in the 2010. You know, people like me were here, you know, and as we start moving forward, look at things as with eyes of the technology of today. You know, just because you may not understand it doesn't mean that it is still not potentially a threat or a benefit. You know, accept the technology, and I'll leave you with this thought. My idea of the singularity is not sentient AI. In my opinion, the singularity is when we have sentient AI integrated into the biological human. So I think that we have the potential to do amazing things.
No doubt.
Okay. Yeah.
No doubt. Well
It's a good
said.
statement.
All right. Well, with that, we will end this segment, jump back in for one more that's going to be a little more lighthearted and fun, and we'll call it an episode, guys.
All right. Sounds good.
Len Noe is a technical evangelist, white hat hacker, and biohacker for CyberArk software. He is an international security speaker who has presented in over 50 countries and at multiple major security conferences worldwide. Len is a global thought leader in the transhuman movement and utilizes microchip implants to advance cybersecurity and the human experience. Len has had his research published in multiple news outlets globally and is a regular participant on numerous security podcasts. Prior to 2001, Noe was a black hat hacker and learned most of his skills by practical application.
Welcome back one more time after the second break here. We're gonna conclude this episode tonight that's been amazing. In a lighthearted way. We do this a lot. Jason knows I always put together these silly games, these quizzes, or these trivia type games. But tonight, this one's really basically just a simple cybersecurity 101, fellas. So I've got 4 categories. The way we're going to do this is I'm going to give you a question out of one of the categories. I'll tell you the category beforehand, and I'll pick one of you to try to answer the question. If you miss it, the other person will have an opportunity to steal it. If neither of you answer it, we'll move on. First 1 to 6 is considered tonight's winner, and that's how it's going to be. Pretty simple, pretty basic, all right? All right, so Len is our guest, so Len is going to get the first opportunity to snag a point here. And the first category is cybersecurity basics. All right.
42.
And so I don't think Len wants to miss this one because I kind of feel like, Jason, you might have I know you know the answer to this because of your CISSP. But the question for this one is, Len, have you heard of the CIA triad? And cybersecurity
Vaguely.
CIA triad?
Yeah,
Okay, so
vaguely.
if you don't know, you can take a guess. You might get it anyway. But the CIA triad, in the CIA triad, what does the C stand for?
Coffee.
Caffeine.
Caffeine. They should stand for caffeine. It's not caffeine, I can tell you that.
Oh.
But I'll let you take a real guess if you have one.
Honestly, I've heard of it, but I've never actually done much looking into it. So I'm gonna go with Central.
Okay.
Ooh.
It's not the Central Intelligence Agency.
I get to
so
go.
I know where
No.
he was going with that.
I get to go.
All right, so Jason, you have an opportunity to steal this one.
I think, Kevin, it's been a long time, but I think it's confidentiality.
It is confidentiality. Okay. Jason
I just spent
takes
the last
one.
hour and a half talking about how I try to break.
I know. Yeah, I am.
All right. I got you, Len. Here's one for you. I have a feeling you're going to know this. So what does the acronym DDoS stand for?
Dumb
Dumb and Dumber.
Basically, it stands for one of the first attacks that most hackers do, especially script kiddies, distributed denial of service.
It is distributed denial of service. Good job, sir.
Gosh, Kevin, giving all those easy ones.
Well, I am the guest.
All right, let me find another one. Let's go to a different category. So we'll change the category to famous cyber attacks, Jason.
Famous
All right.
cyber attacks. He's trying to trip me up. That's why.
It's
let's
not.
go.
It's not a trick. It's not a
Okay.
trick.
All right.
So, do you
True,
happen
false?
to know the name of the cyber attack that was the name of the worm that targeted Iranian nuclear facilities in 2010? Once you hear it, you're going to know it. I guarantee you.
I know. Wait.
You know this. You do know this.
I know, but I don't know it right now. So I'm going to go with, and I know you're going to say it. I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, how did it not hit me in my head? I'm going to go with toxic worm.
Toxic worm. Well, I can go ahead and tell you that is incorrect. Len, do you happen to know what is the name of the worm that targeted Iranian nuclear facilities in 2010?
That was the Stuxnet attack.
It was the Stuxnet attack. Good job, sir. Jason, you're killing you're slapping yourself right now, aren't you? You knew that.
I know.
That was the first. That was the first hack where it went from digital to physical. So
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they basically unbalanced the centrifuges.
Yeah. That was an interesting
And that
one.
reminds me, Jason, of the one during the Super Bowl. Remember that?
Oh,
when you
yeah.
were talking about that, our very first
happened
episode.
down in Florida, in Tampa. Yeah, that was a
Yeah,
crazy one.
Changed the amount of lye in the water.
Yeah, in the water system. Change the amount
Yep.
of line. Hacked a Windows machine.
They did not hack a Windows machine.
Oh, what was
You're
it?
talking about Ardmore Water Treatment Plant?
It was
That one was-
it was
Yeah,
a
the one
suburb
down
of
in
Tampa.
Florida.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
No, that wasn't a hack. That one was actually somebody had left. I want to say it was Log Me In.
Yes.
Oh,
remote
that's what it was. Yes.
It wasn't
You're
a
right.
hack.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I take hacking very seriously. That was not a hack. That was
Yeah,
somebody that used a remote access software.
Yeah.
Changed
That's
the
true.
sodium hydrochloride levels, I believe.
Yeah.
to lethal levels. And the only reason they caught it was because there was somebody sitting there watching the mouse
Move on the screen.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Sodium hydroxide. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. It's the only reason why they caught it.
All right. I got a trick question for you guys here. I think this
What?
one's gonna trick one of you. It's gonna trip you up, okay?
Well, Len's ahead already, so what's next?
Well, so Len just answered, so this one's for you, Jason, but I think this one's gonna trip you up.
Okay.
And it's gonna make you mad when you hear the answer.
Okay.
So
I hate those.
what was the name of the cyber attack that targeted Sony Pictures Entertainment in 2014?
Oh. You would ask me that one.
That was the one that was from North Korea.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Remember, it was about the movie. He
A
was
movie.
pissed off about the
Yeah,
movie.
it was about the movie. It was Hollywood. It's something with Hollywood, man. It was something like that. I don't remember what it is, Kevin.
Are
I
you
know
gonna
the
go with
attack.
Hollywood hack.
That's my answer.
Hollywood hack. That's incorrect.
Yeah.
I know the attack. I remember it, but I don't remember the name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it?
Well, you want to take a guess?
America.
It was called. And you're both gonna be pissed. The Sony hack.
No. Oh,
I'm
is
not-
that what it was
I'm not
called?
I'm not even kidding.
that is
Yes,
such a-
that's
Bogus question.
Yeah.
I know. All right, so that one was a little bit tricky. All right, let's jump into our everybody's favorite category, cryptography.
Cryptography.
Okay, so what is the name of the encryption standard used worldwide since the 1990s, often referred to by its acronym AES?
You can go first, Len.
I can't remember what the S, but I think it's asynchronous encryption system.
That is incorrect.
Standard.
Ah.
Jason, are you going to take a guess?
I did
as
already.
Asynchronous encryption standard?
Yes.
That is also incorrect.
What is it? What's the S?
It stands for advanced encryption standard.
That's what it is. What's the S?
Standard.
Yes, I do that
Hmm.
part.
Hey, at least you got one word right.
Yeah, I went the same way, though. Asynchronous. But you're right. Now that you said it is, well, obviously you're right, but I knew it now.
Okay,
This
here's
is-
one for you.
We're so busy thinking about polymorphic malware that we're getting skunked on the basics.
I'm telling you guys, I told you this is Cyber 101 stuff, so don't overthink them. All right, so Lynn, what about this one? What is the name of the cryptographic technique that uses a pair of keys for secure communication?
Public key, private key.
I'm going to give it to you because it's public key cryptography.
Oh,
Good job.
You should give it to him.
I was waiting for you to,
Or
couple out some question where the answer is brain fuck.
I think he thought he was going to say, no, it's PKE. He's going to say something like that.
I don't talk like that, first off.
No, you do. You do.
No, I don't. No, I don't. All right, Jason, this one's on you. By the way, score. Let's do a quick score check. We've got
4-2.
3-1. Lynn's halfway home.
You're counting wrong. It's 4-2.
You need to get your shit together. Is what needs to happen right here. Okay, you
Just
ready?
telling
No,
You're
you can give him a mercy point.
you're embarrassing. You're embarrassing the Cyber Distortion podcast right
That's
now. Is
only
what you're
because
doing.
you're setting me up, man.
We're a cyber podcast
It's
teaching
your
people
fault.
about cybersecurity, and you're throwing nonsense out here. Come on, man.
We both screwed up on asynchronous.
I know.
All right, here we go. What is the name of the certification often sought by ethical hackers, abbreviated as CEH?
Oh, please. You're up, dude. He just lofted you a Nerf ball.
It's
Watch it miss it.
it is.
Oh, you better not.
No. It is a certified ethical hacker.
All right, you got it. That one was too easy.
Is it tied now? No, we're tied.
No, you're not.
Yeah,
tired.
after his mercy point.
Okay, here's one. Here's one. Let me see if I've got the right answer. Okay, yeah. Yep. Okay. Lynn, you're going to know this. What is the term used to describe a hacker who tests systems for security flaws with permission?
Pen tester, red teamer.
That is a term for it, but I'm going to give you another chance to guess the right term.
Okay.
Because you know it.
Ethical hacker. White hat.
Yes, there you go. It's white hat.
I feel like I'm doing a theorem.
There's too many terms for this particular
I
answer.
like your first answer, though, Lynn. I thought your first answer was more accurate.
This was like, I feel like I'm back in algebra class where I had to do a proof. It's not that I got the right answer. I didn't get the right answer.
Yeah.
All right. There was another one for red team too.
5-3 now.
It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2.
Yeah, you don't count, right?
4-2.
Let's go.
All right, let's go to famous cyber attacks again.
Oh, my worst category.
No, it's not.
I'll take cyber attacks for 600, Alex.
Which infamous cyber attack in 2017 was caused by ransomware and affected over 200,000 computers worldwide?
When was it?
2017.
And what did it do?
Affected over 200,000 computers worldwide with ransomware.
Red Weaver.
Are you being serious? You're embarrassing our name, man. That's not even cool.
Yeah, that was a good guess.
Len, would you like to try to just go ahead and steal this one? Because he just lofted it to you.
Oh my God. I'm sitting here. It wasn't I Love You, was it?
No.
That's a good one, though.
All right. So you guys both skipped. The easiest one in this category was WannaCry, and you both missed.
WannaCry. Hey, I knew there was a C in it. I was gonna say Cry Baby, but I knew Cry Baby wasn't one. So I'm like, that's gonna sound stupid. So I'm just not gonna say it.
All right. Let's go back to cybersecurity basics.
Oh God, we're both screwed.
Yep.
Okay. Who's this? Back to Jason?
Yeah. Kevin.
Okay. This is simple. If you don't get this, I'm stopping the recording and we're just going to bed. All right.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to sleep because this will embarrass me to the point where I can't even work with you anymore.
Okay. All right. Let's do this.
What type of attack involves overwhelming a system with traffic to make it unavailable?
Well, let me ask you, is this like a distributed type of attack?
It could be.
Oh, then it might be something like a DDoS attack?
It is a DDoS attack. All right. Very good.
Apparently we're still going.
Yes.
We're still going. Okay, so
He's still my
that
friend.
takes the score 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 3-4.
All right.
Make it a comeback.
Let's go.
All right. Let me find a good one here for Lynn. Okay, here's one for you, Lynn. You'll know this. What does the acronym VPN stand for?
Let me see here. Very personal, not virtual private network. Took me longer to
Yes,
actually try and think
sir.
of something stupid to say than it did to just answer.
Very private news.
Yeah, once we got to the end, it was like, this is a family show.
Is it really, though? Not many episodes, it's not.
All right.
All right.
5
So
to 3.
That takes you to 5, man. You're 1 away.
Dang
All
it.
right, Jason. Let me find a good one for you.
I don't think he likes you.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, no.
Here we go. This is super easy. If you don't know this one again, I'm just stopping the recording.
Okay.
Pressure.
Okay.
All right.
No pressure.
No, they just give me incentive to mess it up.
What is the name of the process that converts text into ciphertext?
Oh, that's like encryption.
Incognito. Encryption is correct. Good job.
All right.
So now Jason has inched up into a very close second place with 4.
This is exactly how it went with Hutch, man.
I know.
Well, we got to make
I
it.
know.
We got to make it entertaining.
I know.
Okay. In 2018, Len, which hotel chain experienced a data breach that affected up to 500 million guests?
Marriott.
The answer is Marriott International. Good job, sir. He got it. That is 6. That makes our special guest, Len, the smartest man out of the two of you. As it relates to cybersecurity.
According to the C. Pentecost cognition test.
That's right. That's right.
Well, at least I'm smarter than somebody.
Hey, this unfolded the only way it should unfold. We love to see the guests win the contest.
Yes, we do.
Because I'm usually not in the contest.
Yes.
It works out well for me. Good job.
Well, I really appreciate you guys taking the time with me today. I had an amazing conversation. This has been a lot of fun.
It has been.
It has been.
Len, we just want to thank you for coming on the show. We were so excited to have this conversation with you. I think we've covered so many intriguing topics around transhumanism, your background, the book. We dove into some really deep philosophical thinking aspects of all of this. We've given the audience a lot to consider and think about when they go over this. And this might be one of those episodes that people listen to and re-listen to just to collect all the information on. I was sharing with Len earlier, Kevin, that, I like to go back and listen to the episodes at the final copy after we release it, just because even after we've gone through all the editing and I've heard all this stuff, I like to take it in again. And once I do, I'll always find something intriguing about it that I was like, man, this is gold. And I think this episode is going to have a lot of those moments when I go back and listen to it again. These this is gold moments.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, there's been several that I've gone back and listened to and thought, wow, I don't even remember that particular part of the conversation. And it's like hearing it all over again. So it's really cool to do that. But yeah, Len, you've given us a lot to think about, man. You've given the listeners a lot to consider when it comes to this stuff. And if nothing else, a hell of a good reason to go out and buy that book and read it and be more fascinated with some of the other interesting stuff that you probably uncovered in the process of researching to write the book. So I'm excited about that. And man, I hope you can make it up to our live event in December.
I'll be there.
So if anybody listening is in the DFW area, we did this last year. It was our first live show for Jason and I. We called it the Cyber Circus, Lone Star Cyber Circus, and it was in Grapevine, Texas. We held it at Hop and Sting Brewery in Grapevine. If anybody is in the area or wants to come down for that, it's going to be December 12th. We're still organizing it, and we'll put more stuff on our Twitter, but looking forward to that, and I believe Len might be one of our very special guests live that night. So get there if you can get there. It's going to be awesome. And with that, Jason, anything else? I'm thinking we're ready to wrap it up.
Yeah, we're going to say peace out. Thank you all for listening with us, and stay with us. Have a good night. We'll catch you on the next episode.
All right, cool. Cheers, everybody.
I'm Ashley. I'm an artificially generated avatar with the ability to manipulate your mind via the power of my intelligence botnets. Let me prove it to you. You're about to click on that subscribe button and then you'll click on the notification bell so you don't miss when Kevin and Jason drop future episodes of the Cyber Distortion podcast. So, go ahead. That's right. Slide your mouse over slowly and gracefully. There you go. Now click. See, that wasn't so bad now, was it? I'd like to thank you for listening to today's amazing podcast episode on YouTube or your favorite audio streaming platform, and don't forget to tell your friends. Oh, and remain diligent, my cyber friends. The world is a very scary place.
Watch the